Hey everybody, it's Mark Hammonds from Mobile Tuts Plus here, and today we're going to be starting a new series of Q&A sessions. So essentially what's going to happen is every week I'm going to look back through the comments and I'm going to find the questions that you've left that are most appropriate to help other people learn. And these could cover a wide variety of topics. We're going to try and get Android, iPhone, PhoneGap, Titanium, Cincha Touch, HTML5 apps, just about everything that we cover on the site. Sometimes it'll be me answering the question, probably most of the time actually, but occasionally we'll get other contributors to come on and either do a video cast or a screencast to help you learn. If you'd like, you can actually send in your questions as well. So you can email your questions to mobile@tutsplus.com and I'll review them there. You can also send in video questions to the same address. Probably post them to YouTube first, send me a link or whatever you want to do. But either way, if you send in your video questions, you'll be more likely to get on air and have your question answered because we want to see you. You know, it's cool to kind of get a feel for who it is that we have in the community and actually put a face with the username and whatnot. So, you know, that's the idea behind the session. Yeah, without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. So our first question today comes from Jason, and it's on Dan Walker's post, Learn Objective-C Day 1. Jason writes, I'm new to Macs and got completely lost after the first sentence under the basics. I couldn't find how to open an Objective-C file in Xcode, or even where the GCC is. Okay, so there are actually two different issues that I want to address in response to this question. The first is how you would use the terminal in GCC to write Objective-C or C files, and the second is how you would use Xcode to do the same thing with Cocoa and the Foundation framework. Now in Dan's Day 1 post, he was actually showing how to use the terminal to author the Objective-C files. So that's where I'm going to start off. The easiest way to find the terminal is to go to Applications, Utilities, and then you'll find the terminal application. Simple enough. If you open that, you'll find that you essentially have a command line prompt that you can issue. It's actually running Bash shell right now, and you can use this to issue direct commands to the Mac OS X operating system. Some of these commands that were addressed in the tutorial were how to tell where you are in the command line in terms of the file structure. It's the pwd command. How to see what else is in the folder that you're currently in with the ls command, and how to change folders with cd. You can see that I'm now one back. I'm not in Mobile Tuts anymore. I'm in development. We'll change back forward. All right, so those are sort of the very basics of how to move around with the terminal. And then the second thing is we're going to go ahead and create a new just plain C file. And we're going to open it with, in my case, I'm going to use the text editor Vim, which is a command line based text editor. But at this point, you could actually have created that file with any other program that you'd like, and you could also edit it with any other editing software or program that you'd like, such as Text Wrangler or TextMate or whatever. After you've opened the file, we're going to go ahead and write a simple Hello World application in C. So you can see there that I'm including stdio.h, which is the standard input-output functions for C. And we're just going to use printf to say, actually let me get hello Mobile Tuts Plus world. Finally, we have to return 0 because this is an int function. And that's our simple hello world app. One thing you might be wondering about is why do we call this main? And the reason is because that's the function that the operating system looks for when it runs the application. So this is the first function that's going to be called. It's actually the same in an Objective-C application or Cocoa Touch application even. All right, so we'll write and quit the file. And now you can see that we have helloworld.c. If you were to cat that, you can see that we have the source code we just entered saved. All right, so the next thing is to use GCC, which stands for the GNU C compiler, to take that C source file and actually compile it into a binary that we can run. To do that, you just say GCC helloworld.c. We're going to pass in the O option to to name this binary hello. Now at this point, you may get an error saying that GCC cannot be found. It should already be concluded or included in your shell's path environment. But if not, the fail-safe way is to do user bin GCC, because that's actually where in the file system the GCC application is located. So you could do that and then go on with hello world or whatever. Just to prove that it works, I'll pass in help. And you can see that it returned the help display. All right, so now that we have our hello binary created with GCC, I'm just going to say period / hello, and that's the command to run this binary file. All right, and we get our output, hello mobile test plus world. So that actually addresses essentially the whole process that Dan was trying to get at in his day one tutorial, how to use the terminal with GCC to write and compile straight C files. That's what the tutorial was about, as a primer to getting into Objective-C. For iPhone developers and even for Mac developers, it's probably more useful to do this with Xcode, since that's the environment you'll be working with most of the time. I still find the terminal helpful on occasion, especially since I come from a background where I worked with a lot of servers and used Vim and the terminal all the time. But Xcode is definitely going to be probably the tool of choice for most of you. So I'll go ahead and exit terminal. And our next step is going to be using Xcode to do essentially the same thing. So go ahead and launch Xcode. And the method to do this with Xcode is very simple. You just go ahead and click Create a new Xcode project. And then you'll go under Mac OS X, select Application, and select Command Line Tool. Of type Foundation, and that's going to tell it to include the Foundation framework. All right, so go ahead and choose that. And we'll name this hello world without an underscore. And here we are in Xcode. You have your source folder to the left with hello-world.m, which is the implementation file. And you'll actually see int main, same as before, only now you have additional parameters. And you also see that it's importing the Foundation framework for you. And then you have this handy comment that says insert code here, where it just says hello world. So for Dan's tutorials, actually the rest of his series really, if you were to create a new Xcode project the way that I just showed you, you can copy and paste his code directly into this section or write it in yourself, and everything else should work fine for you. There is one other potential snag though. After you've made a change to the file, you've saved it, and now you want to run your application and test, you do that with the build and run command. You can see down here that it's precompiling. Right, so it launched and then it actually ended before you could even see the output of the file. It's not very handy. What you have to do is you have to pull up from run console, pull up the console, you can actually see what the output was. A faster way to do that is to do Command-Shift-R, and that will also open the console for you. And this is where all the output from Dan's series will actually show up if you're following along and pasting in the code or writing it in. So hopefully, to those of you who are new to Mac OS X, this was a hopeful solution to you that helps you get more adjusted to how to either write just straight C files or even Objective-C files with the terminal, or alternatively to use the easy way and write them with Xcode. Either way will work for the entire Learn Objective-C series. So from this entry point, you should be able to continue on with all of Dan's articles without any problems. Okay, so the next two questions are actually on a post that I wrote called iPhone SDK in-app purchases. And this is regarding the iPhone SDK's e-commerce platform that Apple has provided. So the first question is from someone called Sakthi Swaran, and you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on the pronunciation on that, but this user writes, while testing in-app purchase, we got, your purchase was successful. Is it okay for uploading to the App Store? To deliver the app to the user, do we have to write any code or will it be delivered automatically? So this is a good question, and as As is specified in the Apple documentation, what you have to do is you have to both write the code to process the transaction and then to do something after that transaction has occurred. So if you're trying to deliver content to the user, there's no way to do that through iTunes Connect. You have to actually set up your own content distribution, server or something like that, so that when you make a purchase, that content will get pushed down to the correct user at the time of purchase. There is an easier way to do this, and that's to simply unlock functionality or to unlock content that's provided with everyone when they download the application. But this is a lot less secure, for one, because people have access to that content by viewing it in Finder, actually. Another issue with this is file size. So if you have 100 or 100 megabytes or a gigabyte of files that you can allow someone to download, that'd be very large for an iPhone application. But if it were the case, you don't want them to have to try and download all of that at once, and in fact they can't, because there's a cap on the size that your application can be. So what you have to do in that case is you have to push down the content. But it is an option for essentially a lightweight sale, and the best example of that is just pure functionality. So after maybe I produce a light version of an application, and after the user makes the purchase, it goes from light to premium, and all of a sudden I just unlock a couple buttons, put disabled to enabled, and the functionality is there for them. So that would be a good use of using an in-app purchase without a push distribution center. And a good use of it with the push content mechanism is actually the Wired magazine. In the Wired magazine, they push down a very large magazine file for their iPad application, that is, at the time of purchase, and I think that's definitely good use of that technology. So the next question on the same post is from Eugene, and Eugene writes, "Thanks for easily understandable tutorials. Is in-app purchase available for an individual developer? I.e., do I need to set up a company?" And the answer is you don't need to set up a company. You can actually just apply the standard method, the standard way for the iPhone SDK developer program, and after you pay your $99 and get accepted, you can push both paid applications and in-app purchases. The only thing that you will have to look out for is you need to make sure that you work through all the contract agreements that Apple has. Even after you get accepted, you have to approve a few contracts in the accounting section and legal section before you're able to distribute your application. So watch out for that. But after that's done, you should be good to go. Okay guys, that's been it for our first Q&A session. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful and meaningful in some way. I hope it was helpful to you in your education. And I look forward to seeing what comments and questions you have for next week. Definitely feel free to send me feedback just about the Q&A series in itself. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make it more useful to you. Look forward to more diversity in future Q&A sessions, as I'm going to try and pull from other contributors to help answer some of these as well. And that's about it. I look forward to seeing you next Sunday, and cheers.